reporter of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News report. Yeah, you know what I mean? I was out there with the protest with George Floyd. Me and, Maya Angelou was skied up, still I grind, the shit, man. Make sure you check out my album too. In the mixtape, the IG mixtape, at @still_I grind. But on to this news though. So you had Trump actually reporting from, or giving a talk from the Rose Garden in DC, basically saying that all mayors and governors need to do the necessary action to make sure that law enforcement basically overwhelms those that are basically rioting, and if they don't do the necessary actions that are needed to protect the life and the property of his residents, then he's going to deploy the military. So we're talking we're really talking some martial law shit that people was afraid of, but that's kind of how it's looking. Now he says this while he's giving this speech. You could hear explosions and gunfire going off as the National Guard was actually trying to clear people from the neighboring Lafayette Garden. After he gives his speech, he then walks through the cleared park, goes in front of St. John's Episcopal Church, and holds up a Bible and takes a fucking picture. So it looked like he basically got law enforcement to beat up protesters, move them all the fuck out the way so we could take this picture to look like he's on some religious shit. And obviously he was condemned even by church leaders in DC, talking about how the shit you doing is antithetical to the teachings of Jesus. So what are we talking about here? All of this violence, inciting, and this forceful crackdown. So that's what's going on though. Green Wall Graduation. Brady letting y'all know what the fuck News report, man. You see what type of time I was on, man. I was out there with the protest in solidarity with those suffering from the murder of George Floyd. The Minneapolis man, the 46-year-old black man that was killed from a neck restraint by Officer Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis. He had his whole knee on his neck for 8 minutes while dude was talking about how he can't breathe. And he killed him in front of everybody. The world saw it. So while that officer was charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter, the 3 other officers that were with him, they've all been fired, but the 3 other officers were not charged. So there have been protests erupting all throughout the country and throughout the world. 2,000 people arrested alone in Los Angeles. You have 23 cities around the country that imposed curfews. 23 cities have actually called in the National Guard. The George Floyd's funeral is expected to be held this Thursday in Houston, being flown out there. And you got France, Germany, Britain, New Zealand, Australia, people across the world are really protesting on behalf of in solidarity with George Floyd. Keep in mind though, the NBC News has also found out that in the past 5 years, Minneapolis police have over 230 times used these neck restraints, and 44 times it has resulted in people being left unconscious. So it's just like I told y'all, this police behavior, this brutality shit is taught. Bring more graduation. Streets reporter of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News report. So in Louisville, Kentucky, the police chief, Steve Conrad, has actually been fired after it came out that this fatal shooting that took place on Monday amidst these protests in support of George Floyd, as well as Breonna Taylor, 26-year-old black woman who was killed in Louisville in March after police basically went inside her own apartment and killed her after a fucked up search. So Conrad had already announced that he was going to retire after that shit, but now he's been fired after it came out that these 2 cops that were actually out at these protests on Monday that ended up with the National Guard and police officers firing rounds at a crowd. These 2 officers did not have their body cameras on, which violates police department policy up there. And those rounds actually ended up killing David McAtee, or MCATEE. Not entirely sure how to pronounce his name, but this was a black man that is a beloved figure in the community over there, owner of a barbecue business, and regularly gave police free meals. And this person was killed in that scenario and his body was left there to lay for 12 straight hours. So Steve Conrad, get him the fuck out of there. And it's like I keep telling y'all, these police and this police brutality or whatever, these motherfuckers are being taught that. So So, salute to the government that actually, went at the head of the department and handled that scenario. Other organizations, the police, PDs need to follow suit. Green War and Graduation. Reporter of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, protests around the country continued in solidarity with those demonstrating on behalf of George Floyd, the 46-year-old black man that was murdered by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, by him just having his knee on his neck for over 8 minutes while dude was saying he can't breathe. So these protests are happening around the country and around the world, but within the country you have in New York City, they actually were protesting out there in defiance of the 11 p.m. curfew that was actually placed on the city, the first of its kind since 1943. And people still like, fuck that. I'm pretty sure a lot of them was white or whatever, because if they was all black, you would have heard some other shit going on. But nevertheless, that is what happened for sure in New York. Over in Oakland, you have 15,000 people, youth protesters that actually took to the streets protesting. And what happened is, this is actually before the countywide 8 p.m. curfew. You had police officers actually firing tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets at the demonstrators in front of Oakland Police Department headquarters. And then once it hit at 8 p.m., their curfew, you saw the police that were actually basically started making a bunch of deep threats for curfew violations. That's what's going on. Obviously, in general, there's a lot of worry by science experts that there's going to be a spike in COVID-19 cases due to these recent protests. Green War and Graduation. Reporter of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, in Omaha, Nebraska, you have activists that are actually calling for justice on behalf of James Scurlock, 22-year-old black male who actually apparently was trying to de-escalate a situation outside of a bar, and the owner of the bar, Jake Gardner, ex-Marine person, 38 years old, him and his father were out there trying to basically deter the protesters that were out there on behalf of, protesting against police brutality and standing in solidarity with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. They wanted them away from their establishment. Jay Gardner even fired a shot in the air. And James Scurlock apparently was trying to de-escalate the situation, according to witnesses. But surveillance footage actually showed that it seemed that Jake Gardner was acting in self-defense, so there are no charges that are going to be put against him. But obviously, people are outraged. This is somebody who's had been arrested on 4 other charges, including one that was a third-degree assault, and is known for discriminating against his black patrons and making transphobic comments. Green War and Graduation. Reporter of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So it turns out that there was a virtual walkout staged by Facebook employees in response to Facebook and CEO Mark Zuckerberg's inaction in dealing with Donald Trump's tweets. So mind you, I already have the petition, get Donald Trump off Twitter. Change.org/p/get-Donald-Trump-off-Twitter. You can find the link in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube, or go straight to change.org and look it up. It's done by Bishop Grady, $B$hip Grady. And the whole thing is about him violating Twitter policies by inciting violence amongst a couple dozen other things. Now, here we are again where he's talking about when the looting starts, the shooting starts. This is something he tweeted Friday. Twitter had actually put a notice next to his message saying that it violates Twitter's policies about inciting and glorifying violence. And nevertheless, Facebook declined to do something similar or whatever. They're not trying to curb any free speech of the President of the United States. We know Trump is meeting with Zuckerberg and all of that. I'm not trying to make Zuckerberg partisan, but dog, you got to check him at the end of the day. How can you let that ride? Freedom. People believe in freedom of speech, but some people have the power to actually galvanize people to do more harm than good for their own fucking country. And that's an example of that. Green War and Graduation. Reporter of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So, Iranian scientist Cyrus Asghari. This is actually somebody who was
put in immigration jail and had been staying in the Wynn Correctional Facility in Louisiana for some years, but had been pleading for his freedom, not only calling out the unsanitary conditions of the jail, especially in the recent COVID-19 pandemic, but also because he was actually acquitted of having anything to do with the trade secrets war that he was accused of being a part of. But now he has officially contracted COVID-19, and now they're going to deport him to Iran. So that by itself could be considered, biowarfare, right? On some level, if you're knowingly doing things like that. Nevertheless, that's what's going on with our immigration system. And we wonder, why is Latin America now the new epicenter? Maybe it has something to do with all of these COVID-19 deportees coming from the U.S.? Maybe. Green War and Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So in the midst of all of these protests going on in the name of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and them being murdered due to police brutality and negligence and stupidity, people forgetting that there's a pandemic going on. COVID-19 right now has 6.2 million infections worldwide, and the numbers are believed to be a lot higher, with at least 375,000 deaths due to the shit. You gotta say at least, because even over here in the US, we feel like the death toll is a lot higher than what's being reported. And state by state, you can see that being proven to be true. Nevertheless, though, the World Health Organization is warning the countries to basically, like, if they're prematurely easing their restrictions, as many are doing, they're only going to see a spike in coronavirus disease 2019 cases. Now, over in Bangladesh, they actually saw 2,900 new cases in one day, the highest daily death toll, daily infection rate, yet 2,900 in a day. They saw their first death to a Rohingya Muslim at the Cox's Bazar refugee camp. Largest refugee camp in the world, holds 1 million Rohingya Muslims who have been actually fleeing persecution from Burma. And they had a Rohingya Muslim that died, so it's kicking over there. Green War and Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So just keeping y'all up to date with what's going on worldwide, because we still in a pandemic. And people are reacting to the pandemic, even though right now the news is flooded with things about marches on behalf of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Let's go to India, for example. We're 2 months removed from them imposing a nationwide lockdown. This is a country of over 1 billion people. This is the largest lockdown due to COVID-19, largest lockdown ever of a sovereign entity. And yet they are actually reopened their businesses and all of that on this past Monday. Reopened businesses and services like hotels and other such businesses, clubs and all of that. They're going to be opening this upcoming week. But this is all despite them seeing actually an increase in COVID-19 cases still. Over in Britain, they actually allowed for in-person classes to resume under Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister's government, whatever. This is after Boris Johnson actually contracted COVID-19 himself and had to be put on a respirator. Some parents are very skeptical. Even though the numbers over there in Britain are dropping, you're still seeing about 4,000 new cases a day, and you're at 40,000 COVID-19 deaths in total. Over in South Africa, teachers unions are actually doing the opposite. They're actually urging teachers and governments to defy government orders and actually resume classes. Due to the nature of what's going on over there. There's a lot of infections in South Africa, throughout the continent of Africa, you're seeing a total of 150,000 COVID-19 infections, which is not a lot considering the population, but nevertheless, it's still something to be worried about, especially considering the infrastructure of some countries over there. Green War and Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So on World News, on a World News platform, because we from the hood, a lot of times we don't know really what's going on outside of the country or whatever, but I'm gonna still keep y'all eyes open while the media today is flooding you and drowning you, drenching you with protests of having to deal with police brutality, and then in turn showing you police brutality. Nevertheless, the United Nations is actually appealing for $2.4 billion to actually go towards Yemen. Yemen is one of them countries at the bottom of the Middle East, and it is for the reason of them dealing with not only coronavirus, but years of war that has been led by Saudi Arabia and supported by the United States, unfortunately. Save the Children Foundation is warning that 5 million Yemenis are actually at risk of not even having access to food and water. You're talking about with them dealing with COVID-19, globally, you're talking about a 7%. There's a 7% death rate due to with people who are contracting the disease. 7% of them are dying. In Yemen, it's 20%. So people are in fear of that. While there are only 350 official cases and 80 deaths, the numbers are believed to be a lot higher, like so much higher, because they actually have one of the lowest testing rates in the world. Green War and Graduation. Report of the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So while the world is on fire for a bunch of other things, we gotta keep in mind and watch the plays that are being made that aren't being put on the front page of these media platforms. Whereas has been happening consistently throughout the Trump presidency, just like in the Brazilian presidency of Jair Bolsonaro, you have a lot of environmental protections being peeled back. So just on Monday, there was actually a gutting process taking place that was officialized of the Clean Water Act that we have in this country. And it basically restricts and limits the powers of states and tribes to contest or block the production of energy projects like industrial plants, like pipelines or whatever, projects that might pollute rivers and waters. So obviously a lot of activists and environmental groups are looking at, and definitely tribal leaders or whatever, are looking at this as an affront on states' rights. Like, and for y'all fake ass Republicans out there, how do y'all condone this shit? How do y'all pick and choose when it's okay for states to actually have control over themselves or whatever, and when to be anti-federal government, but then y'all want to promote an administration that has actually shown itself to be all for federal government oversight and shit? Green War and Graduation, man, y'all funny stuff. For the New World Order, Bishop Grady letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this Black Files News Report. So keep in mind that, this is about Green War and Graduation, the motto. So we got to keep y'all in touch with the environment as well. Outside of the country, though, you got countries like Siberia. There's a lot of frost and snow on the ground, one of them type of places, whatever. They're actually experiencing a record-breaking heat wave with temperatures 20 degrees higher than what they have been the historical average for this time of year in that area. So we're expecting to see a lot of probably flooding of waters because like the permafrost that's up there is gonna just melt heavily, but in how fast it's actually burning is going to be doing so in a way that will release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is then going to increase temperatures elsewhere. So they're expecting wildfires in the same area, in that region as well, and abroad. So that lets you know what time it is, y'all. Don't keep your eyes on the prize. I miss all this fuck shit. Green War and Graduation.